The late afternoon sun, usually a welcome visitor in my small apartment, seemed to cast long, knowing shadows as I typed the final words of my latest analysis. The rhythmic clatter of keys and the distant drone of the city outside were my only companions, a familiar symphony to the solitary hours I often kept. My phone vibrated, pulling me from the digital labyrinth of spreadsheets and projections. A message from my superior, Mr. Alistair Finch. "A moment in my office before you depart, please." My stomach performed a peculiar flip. Such requests were typically innocuous, a forgotten detail, a minor revision. Yet the subtle formality in his phrasing, a deviation from his usual concise directives, hinted at something beyond the mundane. A fleeting thought to defer, to claim an early exit, was swiftly overshadowed by an insistent whisper of intrigue. I rose, a curious tension already knotting in my chest. Mr. Finch's office was an alcove at the terminus of the corridor, a space that always carried the faint, sophisticated aroma of aged leather and dark roast coffee. The Venetian blinds were partially drawn, slicing the late light into amber bars that stretched across his gleaming mahogany desk. He looked up as I entered, his expression a carefully guarded canvas, though a certain softness around his eyes suggested a shift in our usual professional dynamic. The air between us, typically crisp and efficient, felt unexpectedly warmer, charged with an unfamiliar intimacy. "Thank you for coming," he murmured, his voice a low, steady current. He gestured towards the visitor's chair, but remained standing, a posture of considered gravitas. I perched on the edge, my heartbeat a swift, erratic drum against my ribs. A silence unfurled, pregnant with unspoken thoughts, and I realized, with a jolt, that my mind was not racing with work-related anxieties. Instead, it was filled with the man before me, a sudden, almost startling awareness. "There's something I've been meaning to convey," he began, leaning back slightly, his gaze steady. I bent breath, a strange mix of apprehension and exhilarating anticipation seizing me. For the entirety of my tenure at this establishment, Mr. Finch had been the embodiment of professionalism, astute, approachable, undeniably fair. But this felt profoundly different. An unseen tether seemed to stretch between us, fragile yet potent, capable of snapping with a careless word. I managed a small nod, my voice lost somewhere beneath a whisper. "I'm listening." He paused, a meticulous craftsman weighing each word before its release. "I've observed your dedication, your commitment, not merely to the tasks at hand, but to the collective well-being of those around you. And I wished for you to understand that such qualities do not pass unheeded. You possess a remarkable spirit, and I do not articulate such sentiments lightly." I blinked, momentarily disoriented by the unexpected intensity of his gaze, the unvarnished sincerity in his tone. A spreading warmth bloomed within me, a curious blend of relief and something deeply tender, dissolving, if only for a moment, the habitual knot of daily stresses. I thank you," I finally managed, my voice surprisingly tremulous. "That truly means a great deal." Then an unexpected bloom of a smile touched his lips. Not the practiced, polite curve reserved for corporate gatherings, but a small, genuine expression that imbued the air around us with a vibrant, living quality. That fleeting, quiet moment held a universe of unspoken prospects, and I understood, with a sudden clarity, that my journey home would no longer be merely a return to an empty apartment. Something fundamental had shifted in the delicate architecture of our connection. As I exited his office, the corridor itself seemed altered, softer somehow, imbued with a quiet expectation entirely unrelated to professional duties. That evening, as I walked towards my vehicle, a profound sense of realignment settled over me. Life, I felt, had gently nudged me from the trajectory I had so carefully plotted. I knew with an unwavering certainty that things would never quite revert to their previous state. Sleep remained an elusive phantom that night. The glow of the office lights, his carefully chosen words, the profound warmth in his eyes, everything replayed in my mind like an intricate silent film, a loop I could not pause. I rationalized, telling myself it was merely a commendation that I was undoubtedly overthinking, yet the way he had looked at me, as if perceiving something far deeper than the surface, propelled my thoughts far beyond balance sheets and looming deadlines. The following morning, I arrived earlier than my usual custom, a steaming cup of freshly brewed coffee clutched in my hand, seeking solace in the familiar rhythm of routine. But the instant I crossed the threshold, a subtle tremor of anticipation met me, a delicate mist hanging in the air. Mr. Finch was already present, a solitary figure by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze sweeping over the burgeoning city panorama. The nascent sunlight caught his profile, rendering his features softer, imbued with a contemplative grace. "Good morning," I offered, striving for an even tone. He turned, a faint smile gracing his lips. "Morning." A pause lingered, just long enough to underscore the new, delicate orbit we seemed to share since that transformative evening. We navigated our customary morning rituals, the endless cascade of electronic mail, the structured meetings, the urgent client calls. Yet beneath the veneer of professional decorum, a quiet current of electricity persisted. Every glance, every seemingly innocuous comment felt charged with an unspoken significance. I found myself noticing a myriad of details I had previously overlooked. The almost imperceptible tap of his pen when lost in thought, the subtle, sophisticated scent of his aftershave, the reassuring steadiness in his voice that, paradoxically, seemed to calm the frantic pace of my own mind. By mid-afternoon, my focus was a frayed tapestry. It was then that he summoned me back to his office. My heart executed a nervous skip. This time, the blinds were fully retracted, allowing the full deluge of sunlight to stream in, bathing the polished surfaces in a bright, inviting glow. Far from intimidating, the light felt warm, welcoming. "I wished to speak with you again," he began, now leaning against his desk, his hands clasped loosely. "Regarding last night." I swallowed hard, battling to maintain a semblance of composure. "Regarding the commendation?" I queried, uncertain whether to offer a nervous laugh or simply surrender to the escalating tension. "No," he murmured softly, a slight shake of his head. "Not merely that. I meant what I articulated, but there is more. I believe there exists a connection between us that transcends the confines of our professional setting." The words hung suspended in the air, fragile, yet possessing an immense weight, like a delicate crystal ornament poised precariously on the edge of a precipice. My mind spun, a chaotic whirl of caution, burgeoning curiosity, and an unexpected, exhilarating thrill. Never had I conceived that a workplace could foster such an atmosphere, a crucible where professional propriety and profound vulnerability could so tangibly coexist. "I sense it too," I confessed, the words escaping before my rational mind could intercede. They surprised me, not merely for their audacious utterance, but for their undeniable veracity. A quiet, ineffable bond was undoubtedly forming between us, subtle and largely unexpressed, yet irrefutably present. Mr. Finch's gaze softened, a fleeting flicker of relief passing across his features. "I was uncertain if your sentiments mirrored mine. I harbored no desire to overstep or introduce any discomfort." "You haven't," I assured him, the conviction in my voice unwavering. "It is unexpected, certainly, but it is not unwelcome." We remained seated for several long moments, the ambient hum of the office a distant backdrop to our newfound intimacy. It was a closeness I hadn't experienced in years, sharing space without the compulsion to fill it with incessant chatter, merely existing in a state of mutual understanding. When I finally departed his office that day, it was not merely the frisson of curiosity that accompanied me. It was a quiet, yet profoundly significant awareness. Something had shifted, a tectonic plate moving deeper than a transient attraction. I felt truly seen, acknowledged in a way that was both exhilarating and profoundly unnerving. I realized that the moments which irrevocably alter one's existence are not always heralded by fanfare or dramatic pronouncements. They are often small, deliberate, and tender, leaving an indelible yet gentle imprint upon the very core of one's being. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, a cooling cup of herbal tea in my hands, replaying the way Mr. Finch's eyes had held mine. I could not dislodge the persistent sensation that life had subtly unlatched a door I hadn't even perceived. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I found myself yearning to step through it. The next morning, I arrived at the office enveloped in a curious blend of anticipation and nerves, emotions I hadn't experienced in years. It was a peculiar phenomenon, how the mere prospect of encountering someone you had come to trust could simultaneously tighten your chest and scatter your thoughts. Mr. Finch was already present, quietly absorbed in reviewing a stack of documents. For a brief moment, I lingered in the doorway, a fleeting impulse to feign an air of normalcy, but the instant his gaze lifted, that soft, understanding warmth met mine, and all pretense, all hesitation dissolved. There was an unspoken covenant in that look, a mutual acknowledgement that what was unfolding between us was genuine, and that it was permissible. "Morning," he offered, his tone casual, yet infused with a warmth that resonated directly with my heart. "Morning," I replied, striving to steady my voice, though I could distinctly feel my pulse throbbing in my throat. The day passed in a rapid succession of routine tasks, yet every interaction with him was tinged with an unfamiliar hue, a subtle current of unspoken meaning. A shared glance across the conference table during a meeting, a fleeting brush of hands as we navigated the bustling hallway, the way our conversations seemed to extend just a fraction longer than necessary. It was a delicate, intricate ballet, precise and understated, yet brimming with both tension and promise. By the late afternoon, the office had settled into its familiar twilight quietude. Most of the staff had departed, leaving only the soft thrum of computers and the faint click of a solitary keyboard. I was meticulously refining a report when Mr. Finch appeared in my doorway, a slim folder held loosely in one hand. "Do you have a moment?" he inquired, and I detected a slight hesitation in his delivery, the careful measure he seemed to apply to each word. "Of course," I responded, laying my pen gently aside. He gestured towards a vacant chair positioned near the window, where the descending evening light streamed in, casting a rich golden patina across the room. "I wish to discuss something more personal this time," he began. His voice was a low, steady current, yet there was an underlying vulnerability to it that tugged at my heartstrings. I nodded, uncertain of how to articulate my burgeoning feelings, content simply to listen. "I've devoted considerable thought to us," he admitted, his gaze unwavering, "to the connection we share, and I desire for you to understand that it is not merely transient. It holds significant importance for me." Hearing those words caused something profound to shift within me, a complex melange of relief, burgeoning joy, and a quiet apprehension of what uncharted territory lay ahead. "It is important to me, too," I confessed softly, feeling the absolute honesty in my own voice. For a long moment, we simply sat there, the room imbued with a quiet, profound understanding that neither of us had ever encountered before. There was no sense of urgency, no pressing expectation, merely a profound presence, a silent recognition of what had so quietly blossomed between us. Then he leaned subtly closer, and the air around us seemed to hum with an intensified energy. I harbor no desire to complicate matters, yet I also find myself unable to ignore this. He stated, his hand hovering near mine on the desk, hesitant yet not withdrawn. I gently placed my hand over his, a simple, unadorned gesture, yet one that carried far greater weight than any words ever could. The unexpected warmth of his touch, the reassuring steadiness of his grip, grounded me in a way I hadn't consciously realized I needed. "That's all I need," I whispered. "Just honesty. Just this." And in that precise moment, I understood. The connection we were carefully forging was not born of fleeting impulse or superficial desire. It was predicated on trust, on mutual understanding, and on the quiet yet profound courage to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. The office, with its typically sterile walls and relentless fluorescent lights, had inexplicably transformed into a space of profound discovery, a sanctuary where hearts could, without fear, articulate their deepest truths. As the evening deepened and I finally exited the office, I was enveloped in a strange, exhilarating cocktail of exuberance and profound calm. My steps felt lighter, my mind clearer, and my heart felt full in a way that had absolutely nothing to do with professional accomplishments. I knew, with an unshakable certainty, that whatever future awaited, I was prepared to embrace it. For the first time in a considerable while, I felt truly seen, truly acknowledged, and unequivocally alive. The subsequent days unfolded in a surreal haze, almost suspended in a gentle aura of anticipation and quiet joy. I became aware of a subtle shift in my demeanor. I smiled more readily, my gait was lighter, even amidst the monotonous rhythm of meetings and endless reports. Every aspect of the office now felt imbued with a fresh significance. The omnipresent hum of the climate control, the slant of sunlight through the blinds, even the familiar scent of brewing coffee seemed richer somehow, infused with a deeper meaning. Mr. Finch and I continued to navigate the nascent stages of our connection with an exquisite blend of care, patience, and mutual respect. There was no precipitous rush, no grand theatrical declarations, merely a deepening understanding, an unspoken pledge that we could explore this uncharted territory without fear. Every conversation, every shared glance, every small, almost imperceptible gesture became a delicate thread, weaving us ever closer. I came to realize that true intimacy did not always necessitate grand, sweeping gestures. Sometimes it resided in the quiet moments, in the subtle, profound recognition of another soul. One evening, as the office gradually emptied and the city outside began to glow with the warm amber hues of streetlights, Mr. Finch invited me into his office once more. The room felt considerably warmer than usual, bathed in the soft, intimate glow of his desk lamp, the shadows curling around us like a private, protective world. "I've been reflecting," he began, his voice low, almost laced with a delicate hesitation, "on how this all commenced and how profoundly it has evolved. And I wish for you to understand that I hold you in complete respect, and I desire whatever unfolds between us to be mutual, to be comfortable, and above all, to be undeniably real." A sudden lump formed in my throat, not from fear, but from the sheer overwhelming weight of his sincerity. "I desire that too," I whispered, my hand instinctively brushing against his, a gesture as natural as the act of breathing itself. We conversed for what felt like hours that evening, not about the demanding strictures of work, nor the relentless press of obligations, but about ourselves, our fervent hopes, our quiet, lingering fears, and the winding paths that, against all odds, had converged at this precise moment. It was astonishing the transformative power a single, deeply honest conversation could wield. How words, when imbued with unvarnished truth, could construct an unbreakable bridge between two hearts. As I finally rose to depart, Mr. Finch gently reached out, his fingers delicately enclosing my hand. No matter what unfolds, I want you to always remember that you are seen, truly seen, and deeply appreciated, not merely for your accomplishments, but for the entire remarkable person that you are. The raw vulnerability in his voice mirrored my own burgeoning emotions, and in that shared, luminous honesty, I grasped a profound truth. The emotional connection we had so unexpectedly discovered was not ephemeral, nor was it constrained by transient circumstance. It was a mutual recognition of inherent worth, a quiet, resilient intimacy capable of sustaining itself without the need for dramatic flourishes. Walking towards my car that night, the cool evening breeze gently caressing my face, I felt an extraordinary sense of clarity and an unshakable inner peace. The myriad city lights reflected in the rain-kissed pavement, tiny, shimmering mirrors of infinite possibility, and I understood with a newfound wisdom that life possessed an uncanny ability to surprise us when we least expected it. Sometimes the most profoundly transformative experiences materialize in the quietest, most unassuming moments, whispered softly between the lines of ordinary, unremarkable days. I smiled to myself, a genuine, unburdened smile, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever the future held, I had unearthed something truly invaluable, a connection forged in the crucible of trust, respect, and a genuine, unwavering care. And as I drove towards home, an unexpected lightness permeated my being, a comforting sense that even after decades of navigating life's predictable routines and often daunting responsibilities, there remained moments, still lying in wait, poised to reshape us quietly and beautifully in ways we could never have possibly imagined. That evening unequivocally altered everything, not due to a crescendo of drama or a flourish of grand gestures, but because it served as a poignant reminder that true emotional connection, the kind that endures and thrives, is meticulously forged from honesty, from the courage to embrace vulnerability, and from the profound act of genuinely seeing someone and in turn being seen.